Well, good afternoon for one more session of our Grandma's March. Today being the third day already of our amazing event, inspiring my grandmothers, Rosita and Pepa, and all the grandmothers and ancestors, and all this beautiful energy that is bringing us here to celebrate International Women's Month. And today we have a very special guest, my dear sister Cheryl. So I would love to welcome Cheryl. And oh, my dear sister, so good to have you here.
Oh, hello, Monica. It's so good to be here. Such an honor. Thank you for this auspicious invitation.
Oh, I love that you accepted the invitation, and I'm sure grandmothers are here with us. And before we start, I have a little bit of background noise, but I'm sure it's going to be soon over, just for you to know. And I want to introduce Cheryl before we start our beautiful conversation. And Cheryl Shartle is a transformational coach and a spiritual mentor devoted to helping, especially women, launch into their next level of greatness in the areas of sensuality, spirituality, health, vitality, relationships, and leadership. We will partner one on one, and that's what she says to women, in a customized way to close the gap between where you are right now and where you yearn to be in service to manifesting your deepest desires. That is so
Mm,
beautiful.
mm,
Her role is to assist everybody in shifting all patterns that are holding them back and have them feeling stuck so they can access the divine feminine power that is already within them. Together with Cheryl, she will support break through those inner glass ceilings and remove the barriers that are keeping everybody from living the greatest expression of who they are. She is also a team leader, an entrepreneur, and that's in her blood. For
mm.
more than 30 years, until September of last year, she was the helm and leader of the human resource team of her family company, nurturing more than 300 employees. And I know that. You have been balancing your corporate career with her passion and your with your passion for training and coaching women, and now is your deepest desire to accompany women as they discover their spiritual sovereignty. And I know
Mm.
that that's a difficult word for me. So you can find more about Cheryl in her website, which is right there, CherylShartle.com. So you can find there all the amazing things that you do. And I'm so happy to have you here, my dear sister. And as you know, we are here to play today. Play, connect, and share some stories and see how is that connection with your ancestors, what memories, what stories do you have that connects you to that ancestrality, to that playing, or connection to ritual ceremonies or celebrations of life. And we can go on from there, understanding also what's your advice for other women and men, of course, that want to connect to this and how they can do it. But yeah, let's start with you and your story.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for this honor to come and play with you. You are one of my teachers of play. Having worked with you, sometimes, with intensity, you always bring in such a playful spirit. And so when I saw your topic, I was delighted. Um, Play wasn't always something that came naturally to me. I was a really serious little girl. And so my first story is of my grandmother, Arlene.
Mm.
I'll just say her name, Arlene Graff. Um, she was, next to you, one of the biggest players I've ever known.
Wow.
And so as a little girl, I was always asking from a really young age, sort of esoteric questions maybe, and wanting to have like really deep conversations. And my grandmother, Arlene, was the one who really taught me how to lighten up and play.
Wow.
So, Arlene, we would go to her house in Florida.
Uh-huh.
We lived in New York, her and my grandfather, and then in Florida. And from the moment I would arrive at her house until the moment I would leave, however long we were there, and it was usually days or, sometimes a week or more, we would play cards.
Ooh,
So
fun.
she would just get out her deck of cards, and we would this beautiful woman would play cards for me with me for hours. My
Wow.
it was she would we would keep track, we would keep score, other people in the family might join the game, um, and, that was such a, like, it was such a freeing, fun time, like, as I remember, I can just even feel it in my body, like, being at grandma's house. Food is a really I mean,
Mm.
I was in the grocery industry for many years, so we're all sort of foodies in our family. So she would be stirring up this amazing giant pot of sauerbraten, one of her great
Oh,
dishes.
wow, yummy.
And, we would be playing cards, and then as I got older, she started to take me to bingo, right?
Oh, wow, okay. That's fun.
And, it was funny because we would choose our bingo halls based on how good the food was.
Mm.
The more, like, ethnic and different and tasty and savory the food was, that's how we chose where we were gonna play bingo. And my grandmother would have literally for those of you who play or have played, she would have 12 or 14 bingo cards out in front of her. I would have 1, and she would be able to watch all of hers and mine in her 80s.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
So and there was such memories of play there too, just and as I got older and I began to drive and she got older, I started to take her to bingo, and this was just like this exciting, fun, amazing time for us. She would take her winnings, and she was very, very lucky. She would take her winnings, and she would, hide them from my grandfather, in her pocketbook, the purse she called a pocketbook. And right before she passed away, she was in the hospital, quite sick, not making a lot of sense. And she kept whispering to us, "Go get my pocketbook."
Oh my god.
So her pocketbook was back at the a place that we moved her into so she could be close to family. This is after my grandfather passed. And we brought her pocketbook, and inside her pocketbook, she had over $1,000 saved that she wanted to give us, that she had won from all of her bingo games.
That is so sweet. Oh my god.
Yeah, so I just learned how to lighten up and play, like, she loved rock and roll music and, she was a partier, she was a drinker and, a smoker for a lot of years, and she just taught me to, like, put my books down,
Mm.
know, and just lighten up and have some fun. So that's Arlene.
Hmm.
My
I love
other grandmother, Julia Harding, of, Ukrainian descent, just an amazing cook. Again, the food comes in. I remember when I did the eulogy at her funeral, the whole eulogy was about food. and all the food that she made, and as
Wow.
you've talked so fondly of, like, your grandmothers and going into their houses and smelling the food, like, oh my gosh, that's such a common element, isn't
It
it?
is, it is, it
It's
is.
just, like, such a common
We
memory.
see that everywhere, like, that's a common these elements and the food and the smells especially, like you're saying.
Yes,
Yes,
this
yes.
the, just the savory.
Sensorial memories, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and I've loved listening to all the memories that you have of the food and the gatherings with your family and grandmothers. They inspire me so much. Julia, and I love her name too. Isn't that a beautiful name, Julia?
Beautiful, oh my god.
Gosh. So Julia was this amazing cook, and her dish that she made that was my favorite was pierogies.
What is that?
This beautiful, a very long project to make.
Wow.
These pieces of square dough that you put all kinds of things in the center of them, like wonderful mashed potatoes, or for my father, who is of German descent, she would do sauerkraut or sweet cabbage, lots of cabbage, um, put them in the center and then squeeze them, like, with your thumbs. There was a real, there was, like, this real, art to it, and it
Wow.
it was an all-day thing, like, everybody would come, and she would sit down, and it would take all day, and my grandfather would be, like, criticizing how the mashed potatoes were, and she would say, "They're fine," and they would go back and forth, and it would be very loud, and and so, yeah, that was her dish, and, she always made it for me. I always asked for it on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Every Christmas Eve was a huge, like, Ukrainian, dinner, and, what I learned from Julia, like, Grandma Arlene taught me, about play,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
Grandma Julia appealed to my level of sort of odd devotion as a
Hmm,
young girl,
okay.
like devotion to the divine. I was just
Wow.
like, from a very early age, just super, spiritual, I guess we all
Yes.
are, I just felt that at a
Mhm.
really deep level. And, while we now practice a different faith, grandma was very devout in her faith. And she was, what I would call like a prayer warrior.
Wow.
So she would just,
Hmm.
you know, pray very deeply, um, like with so much devotion, like almost like the devotion you see like of the saints. And so that is where I learned my deep love and understanding of the power of prayer,
Hmm.
which was then passed to my mother. And it's my mother who has taught me like the beauty and power of sisterhood in prayer,
Wow.
which has then become really um, my life's work is praying in a sisterhood
Hmm,
or intending in a sisterhood.
hmm.
So I had to play, and I had this like almost a little bit more like serious devotion, and then bringing sisterhood into all of that from my mom, Carol. She would gather with her sisters when I was a little girl, her friends. She would gather them up, and they would, be in a circle, and they would pray out loud, and I could hear them as a little girl. And so that was passed on to me.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Now I can understand where it's coming from because, yes, I know that's one of your ah, delights that you have, and one of your gifts that you have is the gift of prayer, but it's especially the gift of prayer in, yeah, in sisterhood, in women's circles, and that is so beautiful. So it is amazing how it comes like from generation to generation, and you're doing it right now. That's oh, what a gift.
It thank you. It feels like when these amazing, like, um, you know, propensities almost are passed to us from our ancestors. Like, we
Mhm.
can't say no to them,
I know.
you know?
It is true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a heritage that is there for us too. Yeah, yeah. Just to
Yes.
keep on going and bring these gifts to the world because it's coming from there. That's so beautiful.
Yes, and now, as a new grandmother myself
Oh,
with a
yes.
baby,
Yes.
yeah, with a baby grandson, whose name is John, um, I find myself always intending for him and praying for him and
Mm.
blessing him, and that's what, my mom and grandmother Julia taught me too, is that we all can bless.
Mm.
Blessing doesn't just come from, the man at the head of the whatever. We
Yes.
all can bless one another.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And as part of that story, another thing that I connect that we have been talking these days, and we actually touched on that recently, it is uh, it is time. How grandmas again is in every story. I see how grandmas have this time to, in your case, you're saying preparing this food. It was a long project, the whole day, and it doesn't matter, because it's all the love and the nurturing that is there, and it is the dedicating of that time to the family to give pleasure, to give love, and to give care, and that is so beautiful because nowadays that's so hard to find. None of us has time anymore to do those long project meals with the family because we are so busy. And oh, how beautiful is that?
That's so true, and I loved what you said in an earlier broadcast. I think it was you and Heather that were talking about
Yes,
how, like, the bending of time?
yes,
That
yes.
was so potent. Could you
Yes,
could you share that with us?
yes, sure. It's because since I started with all these stories, we can find a pattern of that's how grandma is so available. That is almost like the symbol of time, but it goes above that. Somebody that was I was talking to actually was last week, and we were talking about this, how grandma is always there available for either playing or cooking and giving you time, and time is so difficult these days that she said, like, it feels to me like grandma is the symbol of bending time. And
Ugh,
it's like, oh my God, that is just like the perfect. And I'm just stick with that. And in every story now, I can see it. It's because it's so perfect. And time nowadays, it has become almost like an asset, so difficult. The relationship that we have with time is complex, is difficult,
yes,
and grandmas have this thing that time is different. It's time is almost like time was a grandma, instead of seeing time as somebody like a masculine thing and so
yeah.
controlling and this structure. Is no, time is a grandma and it bends and is good and is nurturing. So
That
I
is
love that.
so beautiful. It's like grandmother, um, being the symbol, being a symbol of time
Yes,
is like in total kind of harmonic defiance of
it
what,
is.
like what our culture teaches us.
It
And
is.
that's so true. Like, I mean, I can remember, like I said about my grandma Arlene, she would spend her whole entire day playing cards with me,
I know.
you know? It's
Imagine, it's like, yeah, and
yeah,
she
she
had the time to do it,
more
and that's
yeah,
amazing.
it's like
Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm,
I think that's what, like, being seen like that by another human being, especially, in that, matriarchal line, you know, being seen by another woman as a little girl, there's something about that mirroring,
yes,
right?
yes,
That gives us this, like,
just a sec.
understanding that we matter, that we count, um, that, like, that we're valuable. Um, yeah.
I was just getting out of battery here, so
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Yeah,
Plugging
but I was
in.
listening.
Plugging
Yes,
in, yeah.
yes, logging in. I don't wanna just, oh, disappear. So you're right. It's so amazing how it's just that mirroring, and also talking to Heather, following with that. Um, she asked me at some point also, it's like, Monica, you don't have kids, right? So you will never know what it's to be a grandmother. And we were discussing about this, and how that energy of the grandmother, it's not necessarily comes through blood because you are somebody's grandmother biologically, but you can be that energy to someone else because you are offering the time. You're offering somebody, either is a friend, either is a nephew, either is your husband, either is, you know, so that's what is like, it goes above and beyond, because that time that you offer, that quality, that caring, is what at the end is all about. So that's also something that really kept with me. It's like, oh, okay, I can be a grandma to so many. I love that.
That's so true, and as I was listening to that broadcast, I was so moved by your mention of your nephews and these
Yes.
2 boys who just, like, adore you, and every time you go there, you're doing, like, this art and,
Plain,
it's
and yes.
right, it's that play, and so often, like, our mamas don't necessarily have the space
No,
to do that play because they are, taking care of so much today,
it is
and
really.
yeah. So just so appreciate that relationship that you have with them. I'm sure your sister does too.
Oh, for sure. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, oh my God, thank you for sharing that story. So, yeah, I just wonder, I know you have other beautiful stories that through your life connect you to that ancestrality or to that plane or celebration. Is there any other memories or stories that, yeah, we would love to hear?
Oh, I'd love to tell you about a more recent experience.
Hmm.
Um, 2015, my husband and I moved to Tucson, Arizona. We were there for a few absolutely magnificent years. We loved the desert. And one of the uh, best things about Tucson was that it brought us a celebration of
Hmm.
life called the Day of the Dead
Oh, mm,
that I didn't know much about. My husband had lived in Tucson before I
okay.
did. And so when we got there, he kept telling me about this procession that takes place in this Mexican neighborhood, and it's like nothing you've ever seen, and he really wanted to participate. And so we did, and we started in 2015. We were able to do 3 of those processions in Tucson, and what that, celebration is all about is everyone, and I mean, in Tucson, I don't remember the number, but it's hundreds of thousands of people come,
Wow.
and, we all dress up, and we paint our faces in sugar skulls. Do you know the sugar skull? Uh,
Yes.
white faces and almost like skeleton faces,
Yes. 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 Yes.
beautiful patterns and flowers, and there are artists who, will paint your face for
Wow.
you, and you dress up and have gorgeous flowers in your hair, and everyone creates or makes like either posters or little mini altars with their ancestors that they want to remember. And then we start in a certain place and we have a procession that is about maybe 3 hours long, 2 or 3 hours,
Wow.
very long, where there are, there's incense and music playing, um, and you're just like, you're walking up the street with total strangers saying, "Tell me about who's on your altar. Tell me about, who are you here celebrating?" So everyone is talking about their ancestors. This happens the first weekend in November,
Correct.
like
Yes.
around that All Souls Day.
Yes.
And, it's just the most sacred experience. I remember the first the first procession, I cried and I laughed and I just felt so connected to human beings that I didn't even know.
Wow.
We were hugging and laughing and crying and talking and telling stories. And so when we got home, I said to my beloved John, my husband, I said, that was one of the best days of my life.
Wow.
Afterwards, we wrote all of these letters to our beloved dead,
Uh-huh.
and we put them in a giant, kind of like bigger than a house, iron like urn. And what they do is they start that on fire at the end of the procession, and all of these intentions and prayers and just letters to your loved ones just go up
Wow.
in flames, and they're kind of offered. And then everyone has this great celebration of wonderful Mexican food and
Mm.
dancing and singing, and yeah, it's such a celebration of life. And so what we have done since then,
Mhm.
we're not there, um, is we have something called a silent supper
Oh,
around
wow.
that time every year, where we invite our friends and even those we don't know to join us, usually in a hall, because sometimes we have 50 people, sometimes
Wow, that's a quite an event. Yeah.
yeah, sometimes we just have, like, a couple of people. When we first moved here, we just moved back here, we just did it with the 2 of us. But this past year, we had, I think, around 20. And in Tucson, when we did it, we had around 50 or so. It never matters how many people are there. Everyone brings a dish that their loved one loved.
Wow.
So, you have this, like, mishmash of food, and every year, as kind of a, you know, sort of a Virgo woman who likes things kinda a little bit perfect, I have to, like, let go of the, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna have pierogies and, spaghetti and meatballs and Italian greens, and how is this all gonna go together, and tacos," um but the really amazing thing is everyone brings a dish, and they also bring a picture or item, like a piece of jewelry, something that
Mm.
really meant, something that belonged to their beloved. And, we create this beautiful table of all of their pictures and flowers and, uh pieces of jewelry, watches. We've had people bring things like if their relatives maybe were soldiers, or if they were a nun, or
Yeah.
just all kinds of different their
Wow.
their nameplate from their desk at work or something like that. And so we have this gorgeous table, and we have dinner in silence, which sounds kind of weird, right? You're like,
Yeah.
you never know, like, when you invite people for the first time, they're always, like, a little hesitant, like, "I wanna do that, but what are we
Are
really
you
doing?"
sure?
You know?
Are we
Like, how do
gonna
you eat in total silence, right? But it's so interesting because when everyone comes and talks about their dish and talks about their picture, and then when we go into silence, it's so amazing what happens because we go into silence to
Mm.
eat. We always have one dish at
Wow.
the head of the table that represents all of our, beloved dead. And so when we go into this silence, we just sort of ask everyone, just like have a conversation inside yourself with that person. And I'm trying not to get emotional because 'cause I'm really stuffy, you can probably hear that. I have a really bad cold. Um, and you can see people, like, eating, and they're, starting to just have, like, an
Mm.
experience with their
Wow.
loved
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And so then after dinner, they write a short letter to their loved one. And then we all go outside and we burn the letters, like, in a in a
Oh, yes. Yes.
and then after that, we go inside and we break the silence, we have dessert, and we play wonderful fun music, and we tell stories. Everyone tells a story about their loved one or their loved ones, and honestly, that has become almost like my favorite holiday of the year.
Oh my God. Oh,
Mhm.
oh my God, Cheryl, this is amazing. Well, I definitely want to be part of that one day, but definitely what you're telling here is just like the most beautiful way, definitely to connect to our ancestors and celebrate life and play with that and honor them. And wow, that is just like the life because what you were telling about Tucson, and yes, I've been to Mexico. I have not been there on the day of the death because I wish is must be just above and beyond amazing. Um, and I can imagine all the procession and everybody painted. But this ceremony or this ritual that you put together for your beloveds or your friends and that silence, that's so deep. That is so beautiful. Where how did you have that idea? How I don't know. It's like why the because
Oh,
Jackson, you didn't mention about the silence. It was all about partying and
yeah.
nice and colors and by but that silence is just like that moment of deep connection. And you can see that people can of course get emotional and remember.
Yes. Yes. Um, yeah, so I'm so glad you asked that question. My beloved husband, John, is the person who really brought that ceremony to me.
Um,
And so this is like the power of like the hero's gamos, the masculine and the feminine, like coming
I
together.
love that. And you both are like that. Yes.
Yeah, it's so it's just it's so fun to do with him. It's like something that we can do with, for me, the man that I love, to do this with him every year and to see his devotion and this is something that he did, before we knew each other. And so when we began doing this, when we were first married, this was even before Tucson, it was only just the two of us. And then when we had the experience in Tucson, because that area was so in tune to the ancestors, um, and this holiday was such a big holiday, um, when we would have these silent suppers, we thought, "Oh, a few people will come. We'll invite a lot of people." And then, like, a lot of people started to come, you know? And I think everyone, like, we all love to talk about our ancestors. There's at least one. Like, I've talked to so many women in my practice that will tell me about their grandmothers. It's so potent to me that, like, their grandmother was the most influential person in their lives. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That is so beautiful how you create those spaces and the ending of the space of everybody sharing and the desserts and telling stories because yeah, that's the moment that we remember who we are and where we come from and all the things that we do today start making sense. Like you said, I the circles of prayer, where it's coming from, or why my grandma used to do this, and now it's like I'm moving with this, or I'm bringing this gift to the world, and that's so beautiful. Oh
Oh,
yes.
thank you. Also, I think for me, I can only speak for myself, but it's been really healing for me because I've had some,
Mm,
deaths in my family that, are not like my grandma Arlene and Julia, who died at a very old age in their 90s, and lived, this very full life. I've had some deaths in my family that were really tragic.
Yes.
And, before like, what we would say on Earth, we would say before they died before their time, right?
Yes.
Um, and, or I guess it's really outside of our understanding,
Mm,
you know?
mm,
And so this ceremony for me too is really healing in that I can honor, um, for example, like my nephew Stephen, who passed, at the age of 37.
very young.
Yeah, and it's just this way of, um last year we honored one of our team members who, passed away in a very, kind of sad situation through addiction, and, one of my employees came and wanted to honor him, and that was so
Oh,
beautiful.
how beautiful. So you have even taken something like this into your company, which is so beautiful sharing this.
Mm,
Yes. Because in companies, we usually don't do these kind of things,
right.
that, right?
Yes.
And open the space for people to be able to grieve and remember and connect to that. That is so beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. It was such an honor to have them. I think we had 3 employees come to the dinner this year, and it was deeply connecting to it's like sometimes you don't know the depth of someone that you work next to, their story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I love it. I love it. What would you think with everything you do today is a way, and then you're saying one of the ways, and you're saying, how can we take this to corporate and how can we celebrate life and death with these ceremonies and rituals? But how else? Because that's part of your job and your, I don't, I hate calling it a job, your work and sacred work is supporting women through their lives and going to the next level. How can they connect to this, like to play or to connect deeper with the wisdom, with ancestral, um, with nature, with prayer, with spirit, and celebrate life?
Oh, I love this question. It's so rich and wide open. Um, I think the first thing that comes to my heart when you ask this delicious question is, to start where we are,
Mm,
you know, and then to just like have a daily practice that includes a really simple when we say daily practice, sometimes that feels overwhelming, right? Like, I was like, "Oh, I don't
oh
have
my
an
God,
hour
one
to
more thing, right?
push in and go home," right? Um, but for me, it's about this, like, devotion to even lighting a candle.
Mm,
So and I have to again credit John, my beloved, for this. We have an ancestors altar in our home, just the pictures of those who have gone before. It's on a beautiful old table that comes from his family, and he has all of the pictures there, and every single night, Monica, he lights that candle. And
wow.
just lets it burn. It's like one of those tall, those safe candles that you can and he just lets it burn for a couple of hours until before we go to bed.
Wow.
And the simplicity of that ritual
Hmm,
is so stunning because you know, the lights get dim, everything kinda closes down for the night, the candle gets lit, and there's this feeling of safety that
hmm.
comes over, this, like, feeling of kind of resting.
Yes, peace and resting.
And
Yes.
so I would just say, for all of us, just the simple, practice of one ritual that just helps us to tune in, and then, the phrase that I always say is just, "Show me.
Hmm, hmm.
Show me what I need to know today, or show me where to go for that, feeling of peace." And so beginning where we are, starting just where we are.
Hmm. Wow.
And, part of spiritual sovereignty for me is really finding those things that work for you, you know? instead of, like, prescribing. I know that each of us have this ability to, like, some of my sisters feel most connected when they're by water, so they go to a stream when they can. Some, for me, like trees do that for me. They give me that feeling of connection. And for John, it's like standing before that table of ancestors.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, that is so delightful. Yes, I know, and of course, I can relate to all that because me too. I'm very connected to water, like you're saying. So I feel this peace and this restful moment in front are connected to water for sure. And we know, and I know the importance of those daily practices, how it really connects you to your heart and to your body, and to be here and present, but also to connect to that, to those ancestors, to remember who we are. Just the simple, uh, just as simple as lighting a candle, like you're saying. And sometimes we just forget, and it's so easy. It's not like you need to spend the whole day doing a ceremony. It's just
Yes,
yes,
exactly. Thank you. That's permission to allow ourselves to do this with
yes,
fun and ease, and that's
right,
your superpower too, is, like, creating beauty
yeah,
is what you
yeah,
do,
yeah, yeah,
and that is a holy and sacred practice in and of itself. Creating a garden, um,
right,
that beautiful space you have in your home, that I've seen gorgeous pictures of. I can't wait to see it in person.
yes,
And, today I created, like, these little sacred spaces, you could call them altars, whatever you wanna call them, that are sort of dedicated and devoted to the directions. So, like, the north, the south, the east, and the west,
mhm,
the elements of fire and water and earth and air, and just, did it I didn't follow a book or anything like that. Just, like, from our hearts, we
yes.
are amazingly creative. And I mean, I've learned that from you and all of the, beautiful heart art that you encourage us to do.
I
Yeah.
love that. And you're yeah, definitely you're reminding me because I'm full of these little things that sometimes it's like, no, I don't have a daily practice, but I do have many daily practices,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I'm so connected to my grandmothers and ancestors that I what I usually do is like I know it they used to, especially one of them, Rosita, she used to love flowers, and I usually what I do is buy some flowers and put them because it's like it's beauty for my house, but as I know, it's like, oh, it's for you. I know how much you like it, and I do have some objects that belong to. Actually, I'm sitting in one of her chairs. I don't know if you can see it. So
I
when I
can.
always do this program, I
That's
have to sit here
so
because this was
beautiful.
the chair that she usually used to sit when we go to her house, and she was in the living room with all of us telling stories, and I for things because life and she probably wanted I had this chair now. So it's like where she used to sit, I'm sitting right now, and oh my God. So it's
Oh,
yeah,
wow. It's like her love is literally in the
yes,
fabric of that
yes,
chair.
yes, and those simple things is like, yeah, I feel connected just with being sitting here, and
Oh,
I know it's like she's hugging me around, you know?
it's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yes, yes. So there are definitely many ways that we can do that. And as you were saying, creating beauty in our own house, our house should be the reflection of who we are and that sacred place that we love because it's the place where we rest, where we are with family, like we spend sometimes not so much time as we will like because life is crazy and some of us we will have to go to jobs and take care of our family or children and things like that, but it should be this space when you come back that gives you that that peace and rest and that inspiration. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that up because that is so important. That's such a way to connect and to celebrate life. Yeah.
Yeah, our houses really are like our sanctuaries. You
Yes.
know, and
Yes.
and they of course, I don't live in a mansion, I live in a very, kind of sweet, small cottage, and it's my sacred space. And I love how you put flowers, as you put them out, you think of your grandmother, and that's such an honor. You're honoring her so beautifully.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We usually, with my husband too, we usually honor a lot our families, and through actually like right behind here, there's two paintings there, one from his mom and one from his brother. So it's like okay, we don't need to, that's of course I appreciate art, and I do have some pieces of art that I love from other artists that are not my family, but that's a way also to honor your family and remember them. So yeah, yeah. That's
Absolutely.
that's so nice.
Yes.
Yes. So good, Cheryl. I have this feeling, and of course, it's like I want to ask you because I know that superpower and gift that you have of the connection of praying and meditation, and I have asked to some other women in this space if you would like to close us with something like that even some women can use, like to connect to this energy and to connect to the ancestors, if you feel like it's
Oh, I'd
good
love
for
to.
you. Oh, that would be
Yes.
so good.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. Wow, what an honor. I do have just a small snippet of something that I ran across that I'd love to read,
I'm open. Yes, I love it.
and then I'll do a short meditation. How's that sound?
Sounds good. And I want to say before we close, because I don't, after the meditation, it's good that everybody, if somebody's connected, just goes and, is over. So I want to just thank you, really thank you for this space, for joining me, accepting the invitation. I know how important this is for me, and you being here, how important you are for me, and in the sacred work that we do together, also with women and supporting them in their lives. And um, oh, sister, thank you. Thank
Oh,
you, really. You're a gift to all of us. Yeah.
what an absolute honor, Monica. Thank you. So much love. You are just, to me, you just exude grace. You are
Mm,
grace. And so
mm.
thank you for your graciousness and for having me today.
Thank you. And for everybody that wants to follow, wants to contact Cheryl, she's amazing, amazing coach, amazing leader. There is, again, your site, CherylShartle.com. And please reach out because you will find an amazing woman that can support you in many ways.
Thank you, sister. So much love. Well, here is the reading, a short excerpt
Mm.
by Angela Bigler, and it is called Sister March. Tell me about our radiant mother, how she led you into the street with your sisters, united, determined, empowered. Tell me about marching forward, how your voices rumbled around the lost world. And so today, if we want to take just a moment here to just go ahead and connect with your body, just take a moment to allow everything to slow down. Sometimes this is the part where we're not taking information in. And it's like shavasana in yoga. We think, oh, I can get up and leave now. We're done, right? But actually, as my yoga teacher said to me one time when I used to get up and run to work during shavasana, she said to me, you are leaving at the most important time when you can really deeply take a moment to connect with your heart and your breath, which actually is this vehicle that's available to us 24/7, our breath. It actually means we're alive. So, going ahead and just feeling the chair that you're sitting in, if you're seated, or your feet on the floor, if you're standing, and just taking a breath. Just a simple inhale and a simple exhale. And just bring to your mind's eye your grandmother, your auntie, your sister, one ancestor in your life that has made an impact. And they may be here on the planet still, and they may have made their transition. Wherever they are, I sense that they can feel us and they can feel our love. So going ahead and perhaps taking a hand to your heart if that feels good for you, and taking another breath in and just saying their name out loud. Say their name. Arlene, Julia.
Rosita, Peppa.
Beautiful. They heard that. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sure they hear that. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Blessings to you.
Blessings, sister. Thank you so much.
Love you.